Hello, everyone. I hope everyone had a wonderful week. Um, I'm just making sure that everyone gets the right notification for tonight. Okay, yes. Okay, let's do a quick sound check to make sure everyone is hearing me. Yep, that is good to go. Okay, so tonight. First, we start off with I had a very interesting week. Of course, I did. I have teenagers. I mean, it's a thing that sort of happens even without you realizing. Uh, Took my daughter to a shopping mall today. It's not a very big occurrence that I go near a really big city to do it. So I did it and a bit tired. Uh, yeah, how to lose a fortune, get two teenagers. Okay, tonight we are going to cover. There's a town in Queensland that doesn't have power, COURAN COVE. Lydia Thorpe's night out that went bad. The Herald Sun caught being misleading. Dutton's approval rating slip. What is Kevin's new job? First act in ACT that we should follow. Senator Cash disgrace. Dutton's history that we all should talk about. The Solicitor General's advice. Susan Lee doesn't seem happy with the Solicitor General's advice. The ICAC, National Integrity Commission. When that's going to start? ALBO will no longer cop the LNP's rhetoric around the voice. A TV host that is looking silly. ALBO is set to change to the federal government. Do the Liberals in New South Wales have a new leader? And then to deaths that we're going to address. Okay, so first we're going to address this one. This one hit me because I found that it was like this unbelievably interesting tale. I thought, how could this happen here in Australia? Like, how could you cut off a whole town and there be no repercussions for this? How can this possibly be legal? Well, if you're with a homeowners association, turns out it totally is. So let's have a look at where we are with this story. Okay. So COURAN COVE residents without services over claimed service provider is owed millions. Housing and community recovery representatives from the Queensland government have visited residents at COURAN COVE after essential services were suspended earlier in the week due to claims of unpaid levies. The service provider notified residents last week it was not commercially viable to continue supplying services, claiming it was owed millions of dollars in arrears. Residents have met with the Office of Attorney General Shannon Fentiman this week to discuss the issue after services, including water and electricity, were switched off on Wednesday. It is incredibly distressing, Ms. Fentiman said. Clearly, things have gotten out of hand and the disputes are on the island. She said that her department would work with residents to see what could be done. It's the subject of multiple disputes before the body corporate commission, the Supreme Court as well. It's not appropriate for me as the Attorney General to intervene, she said. Now, this can happen. This is why, and if you have a look at what this is, it's a South Stradbroke Island that has this homeowners association and multi-levels of this structure. So they just didn't pay their power bills or sewage bills or anything. So because of each different part, no one knew who's exactly responsible for it. This went before the courts and everything. The final push was when the government's like, no, we can't keep supplying you power without somebody paying for it, which makes total sense. They owe millions of dollars in power bills in arrears. So turns out they've had their power cut, and this dispute is set to keep continuing until they figure out this structure that's going to happen. This story intrigued me for a lot of reasons. One, I never knew that this existed. Two, I didn't know that we had these weird homeowners associations that could be held accountable for a whole town. And these people are really good people, like that they've paid their bills, they've done all their due diligence, you know, and there's really no reason for this particular upset. But for the fact that they're part of a homeowners association and screwed them over. This is what happens when you start being part of the US and you start, you know, body corporating things. It becomes a bit messy. So this, I think, is going to be a story that we should follow. Well, no doubt that this is going to be an interesting one. Okay. Next one. Lydia Thorpe has been had a bit of an interesting 50th birthday. I'm going to play the clip of her misdeeds. And she said things that aren't great. But here comes the but. Lydia Thorpe should not have lost her job for this. I don't think this was all of her own making. I think that this was like a perpetually driven, very upset woman on a birthday bash that just went too far. It was like 3 a.m. and things got wild pretty quickly. I don't know. If I stay up past 10, that's it. I'm out. But this was her 50th, and this footage is very distressing. So anyone that does experience any distress, please don't put yourself through it. But keep in mind that her behavior, to me, is no different to when Barnaby Joyce has said things or any of the others. She's a bit rambunctious, and no, I don't think that anyone behaving like this deserves this automatic place to be kept in Parliament. But if we're going to set the place for Lydia Thorpe to be this, you know, person that has to behave well all the time, how come so many of the LMPs still have seats? But I rightfully got called out on Twitter and was told that I'm doing a what if. So that's possible. But yeah, we'll have a look at the footage and then we'll see what you say. Okay, so
you know what I say?
Here it is, and enjoy or don't.
Early this morning outside a strip club in Melbourne.
You know what I say? You know what I say to you? Shut up. You know what I say to you? And you?
You're a racist dog.
Oh, penis. God.
Independent Senator Lydia Thorpe and her friends out to celebrate her 50th birthday. Are filmed arguing with a group of men.
All I want to say to the black brothers there, and anyone that we fight, any black man that stands with a white little like that, you can all get too.
How the fuck did someone get in Parliament like you?
We've been oppressed all our life in this country, and you let this little dog.
Senator Thorpe also taking matters into her own hands.
And you?
Early this morning.
Okay, so now that we've seen the footage, I want you to understand that her emotions are running high on this. She has received a lot of hate. And you can call me out as much as you want for this, but this is something that I think needs to be spoken about. For her, this doesn't end with a nice little bow on it. It doesn't end with the voice to Parliament just being there. She's entirely correct when she says that Aboriginal people have been oppressed for a long time, but that does not give her carte blanche to behave like that. And it doesn't give her the okay to say the things that she did in racial terms. And this is really controversial. I have seen a few of her stunts. She's a green, and I'm not a particular fan of the green stunts. They are quite well known. But I do hope Lydia is getting the help that she needs to deal in this, because the death threats that she's received as a result of that footage is not acceptable. I don't agree with her behavior. It's not something I've ever done. Hell, I don't really celebrate birthdays anymore. It's more for the kids that they recognize it, and that's it. But she was willing to go out and have her 50th the way that she wanted to, and that's entirely her choice. But I don't think dogpiling on her right now is going to be the answer. I do believe that she is a good woman with good intentions. Just the stunts and the theatrics might want to tamp it down just a smidgen. Okay, so the Herald Sun got caught being misleading. This one intrigued me. When I seen it, I thought, geez, how many times does this need to happen before we how many times do we need to see this before we can admit media is not what it's supposed to be? And can I just say, I think a lot of them do flat out lie and know that they do it. This isn't just Fox. I would like to put Fox on a pedestal and then just say, no, flat out, it's just them. I'm not going to do that. Why? Because I believe that multiple sources are responsible. And we didn't get here just by having Rupert Murdoch. We got here through this slow, driven part of the media that all agreed that this is how they were going to do it. Okay, so let's take a look at this.
To the average reader, the subtext was clear. The Premier's office was up to no good and was out to fiddle with the election outcome. And that's exactly what the Press Council found.
By making repeated and prominent references to the election fixer, the article unfairly implied that Daniel Andrews' office was involved in election fixing in the context of the then upcoming election.
That, it said, was a breach of Principle 3, which requires publishers to
ensure that factual material is presented with reasonable fairness and balance.
But that's not all. The Press Council also said the story breached Principle 1 because the Herald Sun
failed to take steps to ensure factual material is not misleading.
Of course, the Herald Sun rejects those charges, arguing that its story was fair. And in its defence, it pointed to paragraph 6 of the report, which quoted a spokesperson for Daniel Andrews saying,
Mr Drury had one meeting with the Premier's office in 2019 when he was a staffer for the Derrinhinch Justice Party.
Yes, one meeting in 2019. So all those screaming headlines, including
Premier access for vote fixer,
relied on one meeting more than 3 years earlier. And was that meeting about anything nefarious? Not according to Daniel Andrews, who told journalists on the election trail,
I think the subject was about resources and how many staff the Hinch Party would get.
Hardly cooking the books. So, just another Herald Sun beat-up, days ahead of an election which Dan Andrews won in a landslide. And a story the Press Council was right to slap down as misleading and unfair, making it the 6th adjudication to go against a News Corp masthead in the last 6 months.
So let me just put it like this. This is how I want people to remember this stuff. These organisations need to be very bloody careful. There need to be higher penalties for misleading people. If I did this in my own personal capacity, they would sue the pants off me. But they do it with this journalistic thing that they keep waving around as if it's one of their private parts, you know, special and to be held carefully. I'm deeply offended that they get to do this repeatedly, and we're sort of left to go, Oh, yeah, but did they mean to? Of course they did. They have a lot of people to find out what's true and what isn't. And they didn't do their diligence on this and work it out properly. A little bit tongue-tied tonight. Okay, next one. So it turns out the approval rate for Dutton has slipped to an amazing 21. I'm amazed that there is still 21% of people that's like, they don't know Dutton's okay. As we go along tonight, I'm hoping to make that slip further. So in saying that, why has this happened? I would say it's his approach to the voice, if you're going to ask me honestly. This approach that he's taken from the Abbott government's approach of things, just say no to everything, don't have to agree to anything. Oh, and while you're at it, not only do you not have to say yes to anything, even if it's totally reasonable to do so, pretend like you're just asking questions or that there isn't enough information, when people can see right through that it's rubbish. So, yeah, let's have a look at where that sits right now. Okay.
Personal.
Whether you term it tune.
Ads, they always drive me crazy with this. One of the things that drives me crazy is the fact that I need to go through that to give it to you.
Fallen to the lowest level since he became opposition leader. Mr Dutton's approval is sitting at minus 28%, down from minus 11% just a month ago. The opposition leader, Peter Dutton, joins us now in Adelaide.
Minus
Sorry,
20.
Pete, that's not exactly the warmest welcome, is it?
Fortunately, I didn't hear what Carl said, but I suspect it wasn't nice, Sarah. He's just that sort of guy.
He is that kind of guy. Yeah, we're on the same page there. Hey, why do you reckon voters are turning against you?
Look, I think the polling was taken over a period where we had a resignation from the front bench, and the public, rightly never awards what they perceive as disunity within the party. But we've got a big rebuild to do. We're in the first 12 months of a government that's in its honeymoon. This is not like the New South Wales scenario where...
It's not in a honeymoon period. Honeymoon periods are a lot less. That's not it. It's that he's tracking so badly with voters. See, it doesn't work like this. He's an idiot. And you can't tell an idiot he's an idiot because he's going to deny being an idiot. No, Mr. Dutton, that's not how any of this stuff works. Let's break it simply down. You can't say no to everything as an opposition leader and then go, I can't see why they don't like me even when I'm saying no to perfectly reasonable things. Doesn't work like that. It's an interesting position that you put yourself in. But here we all are. Now we have to all play nice. And that's not working out either. And now you're pretending that you're just asking questions like a good old opposition leader. And then when those questions are answered, you're like, wow, that seemed a little bit misleading. Let me get more information. And it doesn't matter what he's told. He's going to rattle it off and play his stupid games rather than worry about how the country is going to get along.
It was a tired government after 12 years. The public perceived that. It wasn't like we'd been through 9 years at a federal level, like when Labor was elected in 2022. So we've got a big rebuilding process to go through, and we'll do that. I also think a lot of families are really hurting at the moment. The cost of living pressures continue to mount on people, and I think the public probably hasn't quite seen that Labor is responsible for making a number of decisions that clearly...
Again, if you're going to be stupid to talk about where your own opinion polls are so low that it's in the minuses, I don't think it's a good idea to go with, well, let me figure out how to blame Labor for that. You're an idiot. That won't work. None of this works. So I've never seen this be quite effective. And catch me up if I'm wrong here, guys. I don't see how that will ever work. But sure, Let me know in the comments if you see anything that he can garner from this that'll put him in the not negative row.
Will make it harder for families. And I think, unfortunately, sadly for families, that's going to come home to roost over the next 12 months.
Okay.
Whether you...
So, Kevin Rudd has a new job. Now, I gave it that name because I thought this is how we'd like to remember him. Turns out Kevin Rudd got a job as ambassador to the US. I want to congratulate Mr. Rudd for his recent appointment in the US. And I hope that he does better than the former Joe Hockey. But we all know Kevin has the ability to do that. So best of luck, Kevin. Hopefully you enjoy the job. Yeah. Okay, that one is down. ACT, the Australian Capital Territory, has done a very bold piece of legislation. What this could mean for the rest of the country, I'm not sure yet. Turns out that they are really progressive and it's super hard to catch up. But this little gem, I thought I would share with you. So share this little bit around. I think you're going to love it. Hopefully it'll catch on like wildfire around the country.
The service will initially be provided by Marie Stopes International Australia and will be available through trained GPs and telehealth in the coming months. MSI.
So I thought that they would have let into this a little bit better. They're doing free abortion services. Why? Because women should have the available access to this. Why the US is going the other way with taking away the right for women to deal with health of their own autonomy. I think this is the right way to go. Look, if you're a woman and you've ever engaged services like this, you understand the full need for this. And men do too, but women particularly know what this is like. This isn't one of them open and closed sort of things where you like to discuss openly how you've engaged services like this. But as a woman, I know what it takes, and it's not an easy thing to do. So to make sure that the money is available and numerous other things, I think that it's a wonderful thing. But I hope that this catches on nationwide so women won't be trying to come up with money that they don't have at a time when mostly it's done. Part of the reason is over financial hardship. And then there's a few other factors, but one of them is financial hardship. So let's take away that barrier.
Australia will also provide long-acting reversible contraception. It's all funded through a $4.6 million commitment by the ACT government in this last budget. There'll be no upfront cost for clients, and services will be available to people from the surrounding New South Wales region. The scheme is aimed at removing barriers and stigmas.
We have safe and legal abortion services across Australia now, but the financial barrier has been a significant one.
Coming in earlier means that there's less stress on the client and their family, and they're able to deal with the abortion sooner rather than later, which is less mental energy, less distress for them.
Women's health advocates are urging the ACT government to put together a sexual and reproductive health strategy that would combat additional barriers, including stigmas and reproductive coercive control, which is a form of domestic violence.
So what that means is why they're saying that that's a form of DV and coercive control. Now, this is what psychologists have garnered from doing this research. Overwhelmingly, they have found women that are forced to keep pregnancies to full term and raise that child. They're also forced to keep in contact with the person that they're having that child with. Sometimes it's not consenting. And not only that, abuse victims that try to get away are linked to that person longer. So there's a lot of like stuff in this. Can I just advise the men to be particularly like careful around this sort of thing? This is the sort of thing that can break a woman to pieces. You know, it's not an easy decision. So if you know any woman struggling with their birth control needs, don't put her in a position where she's having to make a difficult decision to that extent. Make sure that you're having the conversation long before that. Okay. That was a very, okay. Senator Cash. She is showing who she is. Now I'm going to show you disgraceful footage of who she is. So for every time that they're going to bring up Lydia Thorpe, let's remind them of the type of scumbags that they're supposed to be with the LNP. Well, they're not supposed to be, but this is who they are. Well, they're going to talk about Lydia Thorpe. Let's just go there for a minute. Oh, it was a piece of hair. And it was making me super itchy. Oh, drive me crazy. All my impulses just, I can't hold them. Okay. I'm going to fix it in a sec while this video plays.
Order.
If you want to talk about exceeding the decibels, I wonder how loud former Prime Minister Gillard screamed when her own sisterhood knifed her in the back and took her out. Minister Wong is now sitting, reaping the spoils of the victory, drinking from the chalice of blood. Her own sisterhood took her out. One of her own. Where's Emily's list when you...
Classy, yeah. Classy. This is who they are. So if they ever come at you with like, Lydia Thorpe did this, remember, Senator Cash does this. I'm not done.
Need them. There goes Emily's list now, walking up to the table, walking up to the table. This is what the sisterhood in the Labor Party do. They take out one of their own because they didn't have the guts to take Gillard, the former Prime Minister, Miss Gillard, to the election. They didn't have the guts to have her face the Australian people.
Okay. So that's her, like, April 18, I think. But here's another little clip of hers that I thought you should see. Now, this is of being asked a perfectly reasonable question about the raids that was done on the ACTU. But sure, she gets caught lying about all of that. This is how she deflects.
I'm happy to sit here and name every young woman in Mr Shorten's office over which rumours in this place abound.
It certainly was an abuse of parliamentary privilege, I would have thought, to, as you say, to slut-shame someone on Hansard.
If you want to go down that path today, I will do it.
Forget politics for a minute. We're talking about women's lives. We're talking about women's dignity, and we're talking about, you know, discrimination against women.
Do you want to start naming them? Do you want to start naming them for Mr Shorten to come out and deny any of the rumours that have been circulating this building now for many years?
It is quite an extraordinary thing for a woman who, you know, for a woman in Parliament who has presumably faced sexism on her way up, and for someone who, you know, a minister for women to make slurs essentially on women working in Parliament who should be outside the bounds of the political fray anyway. After the Barnaby Joyce scandal, we're seeing a real breakdown in the boundaries between the personal and the private, and I think nobody really knows what to do with it. I think there is a major danger that opportunistic politicians like Michaelia Cash has done this afternoon will use that sort of atmosphere and will use almost the sort of the aims of the Me Too movement, which have led to an airing of a lot of this kind of stuff for political purposes and for gross and cynical political purposes. I think that's what we saw this afternoon. It was bizarre. It was retrograde. It wasn't even clear what she was sort of trying to get at. You know, if she has an allegation to make or a report to make, she should make it properly.
You should withdraw that. And if you don't, we will have to deal with it on the floor of the Senate. If anyone has been offended by my remarks,
if anyone's been offended, not that she offended people, only if you feel offended. That's who they are. This is what they do. Okay, so next we're going to talk about a history of Peter Dutton. This TikTok came to me and I thought, no, you got to see. I want you to know, as you see Peter Dutton saying no to The Voice, what his history really is. The man had supposedly had dog cans left on his desk as a former police officer. So even the police officers that he worked with didn't find it too great to work with him. But I think that this is going to be one of them. Watch this. And you should definitely take the time to find out about this sort of stuff. We're going to discuss what kind of history he's got here. And if we don't, we are worse off for it. So let's get into it.
This man does not give a fuck about Aboriginal children. Let's talk about Peter Dutton and Aboriginal children. Let's talk about the Pinkenba 6. You can find it on Google. Pinkenba 6. So the Pinkenba 6 is a group of Queensland police officers that were charged with the abduction of 3 Aboriginal boys in May 1994. The 3 boys, aged 12, 13, and 14, were ordered into...
I was around that age when they did this. So understand that I was that age around this time. So, Dutton, that's disgusting. This Pinkenba 6 thing. I wouldn't be too keen to be saying no to anything right now. This is an over, buddy, and I will repeatedly show people who you are while you insist on being the Mr. No Man. This story will not go away.
A police car by the 6 officers in Brisbane's Fortitude Valley. Each boy was driven in a separate patrol car to a swampy area in Pinkenba, which is like on the outskirts of town. It's like out near the river mouth in Brisbane, if you don't know the area. The officers threatened to throw the boys into the swampy wasteland and referred to a place where people's fingers were cut off in order to get them to comply with their demands. The boys were abandoned after their shoes were removed. The boys later retrieved their shoes and began to walk home. They finished the journey in a taxi paid for by a security guard that they met along the way. So the outcome, the police later admitted that the boys had not previously committed any crimes, but were taken to deter them from committing any crimes or being a public nuisance. Following an investigation by the Criminal Justice Commission, the public prosecutor laid charges against the police for deprivation of liberty. The charges were later dropped after a magistrate found that the boys agreed to go with the police officers. The officers were put on probation for 1 year by the police service and not as a court sentence. Now, I can't say whether Peter Dutton was there or not that night, mainly because there's a suppression order and the victims and the perpetrators can't be named as a result of that suppression order. That was the Queensland Police. straight off the back of the Fitzgerald inquiry. But anyway, I can't say whether Peter Dutton was one of the police officers that were there that night. But I can say that he was stationed at Fortitude Valley. And I can say on that freezing cold night in May of 1994, he was on duty. And yeah, I know Peter Dutton doesn't support The Voice. Don't really give a fuck.
And that's the thing. This is going to keep coming up. So whenever Peter Dutton tries to impugn anything about the Voice, while he wants to slander and play games and, you know, pretend like he's got it all figured out, that he's just asking questions. Remember, he has this to kick down the road. He's not a respected person. He's never going to be. I showed you his negative approval rating. There won't be anything good that he'll glean from his career. It's a bunch of rotting. I had a candle burning and I forgot about it just there next to me. It's a bunch of rotting and disgraceful behaviour. We're in for a real treat with this lot, and they're not going to sit down and be reasonable and take in fair advice. They're just not. If that's what we were dealing with, we'd be in a different hole right now. But this is what it is. So let's start seeing this for what it is. Peter Dutton is this kind of guy. And keep that in mind as you're hearing him talk about really important topics. Okay. The Solicitor General's advice is in on The Voice. Turns out they back The Voice too. Previous government's Solicitor General also supported this. Remember, this was begun because of the Uluru Statement of the Heart. From that, those Indigenous leaders took up with both sides of government and engaged them both with knowing that this would be eventually put to the people. So both sides of government were on board to do this. I don't think the LNP really were. I just think that they were placating the community and not wanting to appear as horrible as what they truly are as a party. But some were. And this is what the Solicitor General ended up saying. Take a listen to this. And it doesn't look good when they're trying to make out that they still need more from this.
Now, the Solicitor General is the highest ranking legal officer in the country.
Oh, dear God. There's something up on my internet. Every week this happens, and I'm always like, just
He's
bear
put
with
forward
me.
25 pages of opinion.
Yeah, I'm going to have to let
Just over an hour ago, and I think you'll be impressed with my speed reading. I've gotten through it, and we have some information on what he thinks the proposed wording to change the Constitution will do. And there's a couple of really key top-line takeaway findings. So first of all, he's dismissed suggestions that creating this body could end up in some kind of legal quagmire. We've heard this argument being presented that creating a body that can advise the executive government of the Commonwealth could create legal challenges in the High Court. Now, Stephen Donoghue has said that legal challenges already happen in the High Court on legislation all the time. It's been common since the 1970s. And he said there's no reason to think that the Voice proposal would put forward any more of these challenges than we already have and deal with every day. The other top-line finding is that he thinks it will enhance the systems of government. Essentially, he says the reading of the Voice proposal is that it would improve the outcomes for Indigenous people, bring them into consultation with government further, and essentially enhance the way business is done, the way that government operates when looking at Indigenous people. This advice really strongly speaks to putting out that argument that has been put forward by numerous people, by both the opposition and the No campaign, that the Voice would create undue legal challenges and end up with legislation getting bogged down and essentially disrupt the systems of government. The top legal officer in the country is saying that is not the case, that is a fallacy, and that he's confident that the way the wording is put means that the Parliament will have supremacy over the Voice, essentially meaning it will write the laws. It will decide what the Voice can get involved in. It also goes on to say that there's no reason that executive government has to consult with the Voice. So it's best practice, it's advised to do so, but if it doesn't, that doesn't mean the Voice can take the executive government or the Parliament to the High Court and challenge that. So it's, you know, it puts paid to that pretty firmly.
Okay. Right? You got that. Nothing to stop the government, the opposition from agreeing. Because it won't change anything like that. It won't make this legal quagmire, all the questions are asked, and it's all good to go. But if you know the LNP, they're going to spin it. Now listen to this and tell me that they're just not BSing their whole way through this. That's what I mean. They're stupidly going to go with this. Hold on. Here we go. Susan Lee comes out after they demanded the Solicitor General's advice. Susan Lee now wants another opinion because it didn't fit her narrative, and she's really mad now. Listen to it.
This SG opinion seems to resolve a raft of the questions that...
Oh, jeez. Another thing they wrecked is our internet.
Coalition has been posing about the Voice. Will this be thoroughly discussed in the party room?
We discuss everything in the party room, and of course the Solicitor General's advice is important. Legal advice is always important, and it always varies.
This SG opinion seems to resolve a raft of the...
So now they're saying, well, now we want to see the full thing. They did see the full thing, and that's not enough. They're saying that they haven't. They're available for them to read and listen to if they want to. They're not interested in that. No. I would have to be being genuine about anything. So, that's how they want to handle things. That's up to them. Okay. So, next one I want to talk about is the... Okay. National accountability, how did they put it? National Anti-Corruption Watchdog gets its first date. It is July 1st. So David Hurley, our Governor General that should no longer be, his contract comes up soon. We're going to have a look at that, I think, next week. The official start date of the Watchdog's operation. The hearings, however, the public hearings will only occur in exceptional circumstances where considered in public interest to do so. The laws provide protections for whistleblowers and more. Okay, so that's what we're going to get from that. So know that that's coming. It won't be as public as what we want, but it is there. So know that this is working the way that it should. Okay. Next one. ALBO is no longer taking the LNP rhetoric, and nor should he. So, while we're hearing from the LNP and they're making these million disingenuous debates, take a listen to ALBO's approach on that.
Support for the voice continues to fall. We have no choice but to remove executive government from the section clause in a bid to get bipartisan support.
Well, quite clearly, Peter Dutton isn't interested in bipartisan support. I met with him on 7 occasions. A whole lot of nonsense arguments have been put up, including the Solicitor General's argument. There'll be another one. There'll be when the coalition have a look at the Solicitor General's advice. My prediction, my bold prediction, is that they will say, now there's another test that has to be made. But they still won't support it. They've made that clear. The National Party didn't even wait to see what the question was before they rejected it as well. And that's why Australians are, I believe, tiring of the negativity of the opposition. Just because Peter Dutton has the title of opposition leader shouldn't mean he opposes everything. But he's taken his title literally, and he just says no to everything, and that's why he's the leader of the no-alition.
I agree with Anthony Albanese, right? He's put it out there perfectly. It doesn't matter what they're going to propose. They're just going to say no to it outright. So let's ignore them and get on with it, because they're in negative territory at this point. They're not even literally in the numbers and literally in terms of legislation. So let's get on with it. Let's get the voice started, and let's really change the nation for the better. Okay, next one. So when I was looking at this next clip, I thought, how could David Kosh look any more sillier? This is a so-called finance man. And he's really, really stretching it to, like, I don't know, go after Labor because he's got a lot of money in investments and a lot of money, tied up in things that he's entitled to do so. But at the same time, it doesn't help him financially if ALP is in, because they're going to scrap a lot of this crap that they've got going on, a lot of the waste and rot that the rich have managed to keep going. So here's David Kosh making an absolute bell end of himself in a very short amount of time, a minute 23.
To unions that, hey, you can't go for a 7% minimum wage increase because inflation's coming down. Inflation could be at 2 or 3% in October. And a 7% increase in the minimum wage would just fuel inflation. You'll have a wage spiral that the Reserve Bank's warning against. How do you explain that you can't deliver that?
Well, some elements of your question, Koshie, I respectfully disagree with. I think we do need to get wages moving in a responsible way, but in a meaningful way as well. Right. That's one of our highest economic priorities. And it's just common sense, I think, to begin with the lowest paid Australians who have missed out for a really long time.
7%.
Oh.
Well, I think that if you made a list of all of the things that are giving us this inflation challenge in our economy, low-paid workers getting paid too much wouldn't be on that list. We've got an inflation challenge because of a war in Ukraine and busted supply chains, which have been ignored for a decade here in Australia, making people more vulnerable to these international shocks. We don't have a wage price spiral. There's no indication that we might have one. And we think making sure that particularly the low-paid can earn enough to support their loved ones is an important way for people to deal with these cost of living pressures, not a contributing factor to them.
Okay, I think that Jim Chalmers put it perfectly. This means that David Kosh was absolutely trounced and he looked humiliated because it's exactly what should have happened. I'm disgraced that he even attempted a stunt like that. He should know better. If he really knows money, he knows that it's not the lowest paid worker that have caused any limit to inflation. It was a massive profits that they were raking in when they wasn't really needed. And he knows it. So it was disingenuous from the start. But hold on. Here we go. Looks like the federal government is looking like a bit of a shake-up. And what could it mean for everyone? Take a look at this moment where we could be expanding the federal government. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please, any contributors to this, I will put up any and all of your comments, and hopefully you get to hear it all. Some of my clips aren't working the way that they should, and I was trying to buff them a little bit beforehand, but it's not working.
Well, Australia's parliament might be about to become a whole lot bigger, with Prime Minister Anthony Albanese considering boosting the number of politicians. The last expansion happened under the Hawke government, when the number of constituents per MP was 105,000. That number has now blown out to 170,000 people.
So to expand it would be a smart move, because the numbers have changed. So it looks like there will be more representation as a whole. So I think that that's a great move from the federal government. So next one. The Liberals got themselves a new leader. Check this out. This one, I was intrigued by this a lot. Okay. New South Wales Liberals got themselves a new leader. I hope that you enjoy this one. It's so good.
A convoy of familiar faces and some new ones, as the New South Wales Liberals finally meet to elect a new leader following last month's bruising election defeat.
What we need is a strong, stable and sensible leader to hold Labor to account.
I'm looking forward to Mark Speakman becoming leader of the Liberal Party today.
Right-wing contender Anthony Roberts was cagey before the vote.
No one else is running up on Mr. Speakman?
We'll see. We'll see.
He has confirmed. Does he have your support?
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
In the end, the former Attorney General Mark Speakman emerged as Dominic Perrottet's replacement. Mr. Speakman winning 22 votes to 13 over Anthony Roberts. The deputy position won't be filled for another fortnight, while the party considers a rule change that would open it up to members of the upper house.
I am subject to those amendments. If they are successful, yes, I will be putting my hand up.
She's an outstanding individual and she would make a very fine deputy parliamentary leader.
As a member of the Liberals' dominant moderate faction, Mark Speakman has talked up the need to modernise the party. They've promoted a man with a track record of driving significant reforms through Parliament. They include major changes surrounding affirmative consent and coercive control. Now leading the opposition, he says he'll be constructive.
We won't oppose for opposition's sake where we agree with the government.
I know his job's to hold me to account, and I think that's a good thing.
We won't just say no for just no's sake. This is them telling on themselves. That's brilliant. As I'm itching my nose because something's dust or something's bothering me. Okay, so now they openly admit that they're the no party. This is them doubling on themselves. No, this is brilliant, brilliant.
In a functioning democracy, so congratulations to Mark.
A shadow ministry will be finalised before Parliament returns next month.
Okay. Oh, my very annoying nose is, trying to get away from me. Okay, so A living legend has passed away. I have shared many of his stories with you. I have shown that this man has been a lot for a lot of people. So let's have a look at the life of Father Bob. This was a man that took out a lot of support. So he went to a lot of political things. Like, he was pro-union, he was social justice advocate. Okay, so those who mourn him can be grateful that he lived longer than most and an extraordinary life of community. It struggled to find a social justice advocate in the country who didn't have an encounter with Bob's unique practice of larrikin and radical faith. Bob did a lot of poverty events, and he'd worked for the Uniting Church charity, Bob St. Kilda Turf, and collaborated with service programs with many people. He also helped out a lot of homeless people, LGBT and transgender, and he was a left-wing icon. This is what the left believes in doing. Whether we like them to be political or not is not the point. They are. And a lot of these shows up on what their stances are on being gay or women's rights or many, many things. So the living legend, Father Bob, has passed away, and he has been awarded a state funeral by Dean Andrews. So congrats to a wonderful man and a living legend. May your light shine forevermore. Died aged 88. I hope you rest in peace and your soul is finally at ease and no longer worried about others. Okay, he isn't the only one that we're going to discuss tonight. Turns out there is another. The original name that he went by is Barry Humphries. He also went by Dame Ebner. Now, this person was part of entertainment. Then there was also another alter ego that he had, was Sir Les. He rubbed shoulders with a lot of people like King Charles, and he just had this way about him. He managed to bring out the very best of himself publicly, I think. He had some controversial moments where he did say things that he shouldn't have. I think if you go to Hannah Gatsby's Twitter page, it outlines all of that. But I'm not going to do that because, honestly, the man's gone. And I enjoyed the Dame Edna times and the Sir Les and Barry Humphries himself. So goodbye and best of luck. And I hope you two are okay with your allotment in life, my friend. Okay, so that is us for tonight. I want to thank you for coming. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you don't know anyone that is currently watching, please take the time to share it to them. This cannot go on without your ongoing support. I need to thank everybody who tuned in now and the ones that will later on. These do get a very small audience. So if we can do something to bump that, please make that possible. I want to thank everyone here. Have a wonderful Sunday evening and the rest of the week. Bye, guys.